Today, we are diving deep into the 2,000-year story of Manchester. Now, that's a bold claim, but this is a city that, you could argue, literally created the modern world. I mean, from the first steam-powered factory to the first real programmable computer, this is a place where the future has been forged again and again.
It's a city of absolutely groundbreaking science. This is where Ernest Rutherford first split the atom, a discovery that completely upended our understanding of the universe itself. And of course, it's a city of football. It's home to two global giants, Manchester United and Manchester City. And their rivalry is famous in pretty much every corner of the globe.
And maybe most importantly, it's a city of revolution. We're talking industrial and political revolution, a place where the world we live in today was hammered out in the fire of factories and the passion of protest. So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a cold, wet, remote outpost on the edge of an empire become a global powerhouse that changed everything? Well, that's the story we're going to get into. So let's start at the beginning, nearly 2,000 years ago. And honestly, for most of that time, you would have had absolutely no clue what this place was going to become. This city wasn't born from some grand design. It was just Roman pragmatism.
Back in 79 AD, the Romans built a fort, called it Municium. For centuries, that's all it was, a tiny settlement. When the Romans packed up and left, it almost disappeared. I mean, it barely gets a shout out in the Doomsday Book in 1086. It got a market charter in 1222, which gave it a bit of a purpose. And by the 1600s, it was this small but pretty fiercely independent town that actually held off royalist forces in the Civil War. But for over 1,500 years, it was muddy, it was agricultural, it was, unremarkable. And then something arrived from across the ocean, and it lit a fuse. So in the 1700s, this new material shows up, cotton. It was light, it was fashionable, everyone wanted it. And Manchester, with its damp, rainy climate, which turns out to be perfect for spinning thread, was about to kick off a revolution that would completely reshape the world. But we have to be absolutely clear about where the fuel for this engine came from. The cotton that poured into Manchester's mills was planted and harvested by enslaved Africans on plantations in the Americas. This system, the triangular trade, it was a horrific cycle of exploitation. And it's the uncomfortable but essential truth that the city's incredible industrial power was built on the back of human bondage. The pace of innovation was just dizzying. First, you get the spinning jenny, then the water frame, and then the spinning mule, which basically took the best of both. Suddenly, one worker could do the work of dozens. But these machines were way too big for cottages, so they were housed in these enormous steam-powered buildings, the world's first factories. You see, this wasn't just about making cloth anymore. This was a whole new way of organizing human life around the machine, a model of industrial capitalism that would spread from Manchester across the entire planet. And the impact? It was immediate and just staggering. People flooded in from the countryside looking for work. By 1801, the population had exploded to around 70,000 people. Manchester wasn't a little market town anymore. It was so dominant, it got a new nickname, Cottonopolis, the city of cotton. But all this progress came at an almost unimaginable human cost. The 19th century turned Manchester into a city of shocking extremes, of unbelievable wealth right next to the most desperate poverty. And that set the stage for conflict, and for a moral choice that would define the city's character. You really had two different cities living side by side. For the mill owners, it meant unimaginable wealth, political power, you name it. But for the workers, life was just brutal. We're talking 16-hour shifts in incredibly dangerous factories. Children, some as young as 5 years old, crawling underneath the running machinery. And they lived in these crowded, filthy slums with no clean water, no sanitation, nothing. The horrific reality of it all is captured in this one stark number. In the 1840s, the average life expectancy for a laborer in Manchester was just 25 years old. Let that sink in. The city that was creating so much wealth for the world was literally killing its own people. And these people had no voice, no vote. So on August 16, 1819, a huge crowd, up to 80,000 people, gathered peacefully at St. Peter's Field to demand the right to vote. Their response was state-sanctioned violence. The local cavalry charged into the unarmed crowd of men, women, and children. The Peterloo Massacre, as it became known, was an absolute slaughter.
but it also lit a fire for democratic reform that just could not be put out.
Okay, so fast forward a few decades, and another crisis forces an even tougher choice. The American Civil War kicks off, and the Union Navy blockades the southern ports. The cotton supply to Manchester completely dries up. Mills shut down, and hundreds of thousands of workers start to starve. So the Confederacy comes to them with a deal. Support our cause, and we'll get you the cotton. So what would you do?
Well, in what Abraham Lincoln himself called a moment of sublime Christian heroism, the starving workers of Manchester chose solidarity. They gathered together and they wrote a letter to Lincoln, backing the Union and the abolition of slavery. They chose to keep suffering rather than play a part in the enslavement of others. And there's a statue of Lincoln standing in the city today, a monument to that incredible, powerful choice.
That act of solidarity was a massive moral high point. But, ironically, the global system that Manchester had pioneered, this world of fierce competition and constant change, it would eventually lead to its own decline. The city was forced, once again, to totally reinvent itself just to survive. The 20th century just brought one challenge after another. World War I took a devastating toll on its young men. Then countries like India and the US, who used to buy Manchester's goods, started building their own mills. They became competitors. Then the Manchester Blitz during World War II gutted the city center. The empire faded, and the captive markets disappeared. By the 1970s, the last mills were closing their doors, and the city felt tired, grimy, and kind of left behind by the world it helped create. But here's the thing about Manchester. Its story is one of constant reinvention. Out of the ashes of that industrial past, the city forged a new, vibrant identity, one built on culture, on creativity, and on this, just unbreakable spirit. And you can see that transformation everywhere. The huge Victorian warehouses that once held bales of cotton, they're now filled with tech startups and cool apartments. The old derelict canals, once the highways of industry, are now lined with lively bars and restaurants. The city basically took its industrial ghosts and gave them a brand new life. The Manchester of today is defined by totally different things. Its music scene is legendary. We're talking the Smiths, Oasis, right up to the artists of today. Its football clubs are massive global brands. Its universities mean it's one of Europe's youngest cities. It's a huge hub for media, and its incredibly vibrant LGBTQ+ community in the gay village is a symbol of its modern, inclusive identity. And if there's one symbol that captures this city, it's the worker bee. It goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, representing the hives of activity in the cotton mills. But today it means so much more. After the tragic arena attack in 2017, the bee became this powerful symbol of Mancunian solidarity, of resilience, and of a defiant spirit of togetherness. So, from a Roman fort to an industrial giant to a post-industrial cultural hub, the one constant in Manchester's story has been change. It's a city that has always defied expectations and remade itself. So, after 2,000 years of reinvention, the only real question left is what comes next?